Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thanks for joining our diagnostic training session today. Now, if you have any questions throughout the session, if you're joining us on Zoom, just look at the top or the bottom of your screen. Wherever your Zoom controls are, you should be able to see a Q&A button. Click on that, type in your question, hit submit, and I will get to those at the end of the session. If you are watching us on YouTube, just feel free to leave a comment on the live chat there, and I'll be able to answer those at the end as well. Hold on one second. I need to start this again. There we go. All right. So my name is Jason Gabrinas. I'm one of Snap-on's national diagnostic technical trainers. Been in the training department the last 9 years or so, traveling around North America, helping techs and shop owners get the most out of their diagnostic equipment. Before I did that, it was a couple years as a diagnostic sales rep at Snap-on. Got about 30 different Snap-on franchisees I work with, as well as the shops that they service, in order to help everyone get the most out of their diagnostic needs. Then before I did that, it was 8 years at Subaru. So over time, and worked 8 years at Subaru. Over time there, just became the go-to diag guy in the shop. So I always ended up with the drivability problems, the intermittent problems, the weird wiring problems that would show up on those cars. And that's really where I cut my diagnostic teeth, was trying to figure out all those weird head scratcher type cars that would come into my bay. And before that, a bunch of other miscellaneous wrenching jobs. Been a little over 25 years under hood experience for me. So enough about me. Let's talk about the topic at hand, and that is thermal imaging revisited. So we've had a couple classes on thermal imaging and how that can be useful to you in your diagnostic day. It's also useful to you in more than just diagnosing problems. It can also be useful for finding problems that have yet to be a problem, seeing the future, maybe, so to speak, preventative maintenance, as it were. Also, being able to just use it for inspecting of a vehicle, just a vehicle inspection, alert a customer to know, here's what's going on with your vehicle, here's what we found, and might be interested in taking a look at that. So we always talk about having a good workflow when it comes to diagnosing a vehicle, right? We start when it's diagnostic time, it's time to do a pre-scan. We're going to check all the systems, see what we have for codes. Then we'll get through our diagnosis after that. Once we've done that, we do the actual repair. Then we'll reset or recalibrate or relearn the system after we're done. And then we'll do a post scan after a road test to verify that the vehicle's operating the way it should, right? So that's our pretty standard diagnostic workflow. But if we even think further ahead of that, before we get to that point where we're going to diagnose the vehicle, we also wanted the customer's got to show up, right? So we have our intake to customer, and it's going to capture the customer complaint. It might not be, oh, well, I got an engine light on. It might be, well, I got a noise in the rear. It might be, I have a hard time starting the vehicle. It could be a lot of things. So you got to make sure you capture that customer complaint. Then you're going to road test that vehicle to verify the complaint, especially if it's a noise or some sort of other drivability problem. I want to road test the vehicle under those same conditions that the customer says and see if I can verify the complaint, see if I can duplicate the complaint. Then after the road test, I want to inspect the vehicle. I want to see if I can uncover the cause of the issue and or any other issues that may be involved. And that's really where we're going to focus our energy when it comes to the thermal imager with that. So the diagnostic thermal imager, it allows us to uncover that cause and any other issues that there might be. Now, one of the common misconceptions with thermal imaging is it's just showing me what's hot and what's cold and anywhere in between on the image here. But really what it does is it works off a temperature differential. If you were to look at this picture on the left and you were just to think about what you may have heard about thermal imaging, or just a common misconception about it is, oh, there's a lot of cold and there's that one hot spot in the middle. And then it's one on the right side, oh, that's all pretty warm because it's all showing orange. Not 100% accurate. So if we see the coldest thing in this image on the left-hand side, so these dark purples, blues, blacks, 75.6 degrees. So that's a pretty nice day, right? 75 degrees. And then the hottest section, this is actually a corroded high resistance connector, is 175 degrees. So that's pretty warm. That connector might end up melting pretty soon. But we can see that's the differential. I get 75 to 175. That's a 100-degree difference from the coldest to the warmest on the screen. If I go over on the right-hand side, we see, oh, yeah, it looks really hot. The hottest or warmest thing in this scene is 83 degrees. And that's this little guy right over here. The rest of it's in the mid 70s, upper 70s. And then the coldest thing, which is also right here, 72.5 degrees. So between there and there, that's 11.1 degree difference. So that's a temperature differential that you're looking at, not just it's hot and it's cold. You just have to think about that. There's other stuff like emissivity that we don't even really need to get into here, but different levels of thermal imaging will provide a different image as well. So we can do different colors. But it allows you to see the unseen as well. So we look on the left-hand side, we have this motorcycle with a double wall pipe. We got an insulated pipe there, and we can see how much cooler it is, comparatively speaking, to the hot pipe coming off the bike. So right there at the cylinder head, we got about 770 degrees coming off that cylinder. Then it gets down to that double wall pipe. We're down maybe into the hundreds, high 80s, high 90s. So 59 is the coolest over here. So it's warmer than that, somewhere in this neck of the woods. So maybe in the 80s, 90s, hundreds, could be. Over here on the right-hand side, this is a cold day with a heated seat on a motorcycle. So we got 17 degrees at the coldest. That'd be the metal on the bike right there. And then we got 69 degrees on the wires for the seat heater in there. So it allows you to see whether that seat heater is working, allows you to see how that thermal insulation is working on there as well. Then we get to electrical diagnosis. So electrical diagnosis, I think, at least when we first came out of it, this is where a lot of folks jump to. Well, it's just trying to find a high resistance connector or short or something of that nature. So in this case, we got a high resistance battery terminal over here, 153 degrees on the positive terminal right there. And then we see on the right-hand side, that's after they clean the corrosion off the terminal, and much cooler there. Now you see it's still 165 degrees at the top, but that's the engine over here. So remember, got to know what you're looking at. Got to understand where it is in the scene when you're panning the camera across. That's the battery. We can see the two battery caps, and we can see what we were focusing on is going to be this. Instead of being 100-something degrees, it is now down to the 70-something degrees, which is ambient room temperature. So that's a high resistance terminal. High resistance connector, we saw that a little bit earlier, but we got a lot of heat in there, 175 degrees in the middle, a lot of resistance, and resistance, helpful enough, causes heat, or it releases that energy as heat. So if I have high resistance, it makes it easier to see where the hot spot is. And then there's a good connector after they fixed it. Everything's about the same temperature across the board. This one I thought was kind of neat too. This is a high resistance circuit. So this is a wire in a harness, and you can see how it's much hotter, 157 degrees in that harness going up, and that's about 75 degrees at the coldest over here. Once they fix it, you can see it's pretty much about the same temperature as the room. But there again brings me back to the temperature differential. I got 75 degrees in the room all around. That high resistance connector is 157 degrees, big draw, big heat. Once I fix it, I still have some oranges and yellows in there, but it's 80 degrees at the highest. So you always just got to keep that in mind. You should be able to see the problem if you got some high heat, but just don't be thrown off when you see, oh man, it's really hot. This whole connector is hot. Now it's not. You got to look at that temperature scale. Here's another example. Where's that draw? Where is my draw? Well, maybe the relay is stuck on, or what relay is on that causing it. Be able to see that with this as well. I'm going to watch it, keep an eye on it, and then all of a sudden, maybe the relay kicks on and it turns warmer. 150 degrees in this case, we can see the two relays are on. Another different view we can look. So this is with opacity. So we can kind of see a little bit of the real world camera, a little bit of thermal mixed together. That's on the Thermal Imager Elite. And then we also have a picture-in-picture as well. So the center of my image is going to be thermal. Everything around it is camera. So that kind of gives me a visual as to where is this as part of my scene. Another example is the 4-wheel drive switch that was shorted. So you can see we got a couple hot spots there on that switch versus over here after the repair was made. We can see we don't have that hot spot down there that we had before. It's a little warmer there, 112 degrees. Maybe it was a warm day out as well in that case. But we can see how it's much warmer there than it is down here. So that's electronics. How about tires and bearings? We can find out a lot about tires, alignments, bad wheel bearings, things of that nature. So here's an alignment issue. So remember how I said you want to road test the vehicle, drive it down the road, drive it at speed. In this case, we got more friction on the outside of the tire than we have on the inside of the tire. You can see it's considerably warmer out there. So that indicates that we have, maybe could either be a caster or a camera issue with that, or toe, I guess, would be that in that case. But yeah, too much wear on the outside of the tire. In this case, it's fixed and it's nice and even wear across the board, across the whole tire there. How about overinflation? So we have overinflation. We got too much friction on the contact patch in the middle. It's overinflated, so it's going to be warmer. Conversely, if I have a underinflated tire, it's going to be warmer on the outside because the inside's not going to touch as much. It's going to kind of lift up. It's going to wear on the outsides there. So overinflation or underinflation can be found using that as well. How about a pinhole leak in the tire? This one's my favorite. If these thermal imagers were available back then when I had when I worked in the shop, I would have grabbed one of these in a second. Because how hard is it to find that little pinhole leak in the tire sometimes? Sometimes it's fairly obvious, but sometimes it's not. And then I have to spray the soapy water underneath the vehicle. It's dripping all over the place, or maybe I have to dismount it, put it in the big tub, find out where the bubbles come out, right? As a story, we had a sales rep that was talking about thermal cameras one day with a franchisee, and they went into this off-road shop, and they worked on a bunch of Jeeps. They had a Jeep up on the lift, and they were trying to find where's the slow leak in this 44-inch tire that we had on there, because it's leaking down overnight. We need to find it. So they got 3 people trying to get this tire off to get it over into the bath to see where the leak was, and the rep just kind of went over, took a little look at it, and says, "Oh, it's right there." Because you can see that the air coming out at a higher velocity is going to be cooler than the ambient air around. So you'll see it's not a lot cooler. We got a higher temperature here, but it is cool enough where I can see that it is a cooler temperature, and I can see that's where the pinhole leak on that tire is, and that's where the problem is. How about using thermal imaging to show and sell repairs? We talk about using this as an investigative tool to go take a look at that. So I got a customer complaint, car comes in, noise in the rear. So how do I find the noise? Is it a wheel bearing? Is it a differential? What is it? It could be a bad tire, right? How do I know? So we're going to road test it. We're going to raise the vehicle up, and we're going to shoot it with the camera. And sure enough, in this case, we find it's got a bad differential side bearing. So there's the rear differential. We can see kind of the outline of it on this picture. And then there's the pinion coming in. And then there's my 2 axle bearings there. That one bearing was bad. When it's bad, it increases the amount of friction. When I have higher friction, I have higher heat. So that's why I have a higher heat signature there. And then over here, we can see the pumpkin's all about the same temperature-wise. It's going to be a little bit warmer because we got things moving around. We got the oil moving around in there, but it's not nearly as hot of a hot spot as we had over here. I'd also call your attention to hottest spot here is 100. Hottest spot here is also 100. So there's something emitting heat over here that they don't, it's on the bench or something in the background. So just be aware of that. Sometimes there could be things in the background. Same thing over here, 107 degrees, but this pumpkin is considerably cooler. It's kind of in the middle there, maybe at 80 or 90 degrees, right? So we have it cooler in there around maybe 70 to 80 degrees. I don't know, but somewhere in the middle. I think you can see that there's a big difference between this white hot spot and no white hot spot right there. I want a misfire diagnosis. That's another favorite as well. So on this engine, it's really simple. It's an inline 4-cylinder. It's got a manifold on the front. Which cylinder is not causing heat? Which cylinder is not firing? Right there, we can see that cylinder is not creating nearly as much heat as the other ones, 300 and something degrees. Not nearly as much heat, so that cylinder's not firing. That's pretty cut and dry, right? Especially if you get a P0300 code and you're not sure 100% which one it is. If the manifold's easy to get to, that might not be a bad way to go about it. And over here after the fix, confirm the repair. All 4 cylinders firing at the same, and they're all the same temperature, 356 degrees. And then you can also figure out why is it misfiring. I know which one it is, but how do I know why it's misfiring? In this case, we got an inline engine. There's a cold coil. So remember how sometimes heat means bad, other times cold means bad. So when a coil is working, it's going to generate heat. It's going to generate, to generate the electricity, it's going to generate a byproduct of that. So when it's not generating heat, we can see that this coil is cold. Well, relatively speaking, it's like 70 degrees, but it's the same temperature as the outside ambient. Now it is a little warmer on the bottom because that's where the engine is. That's the metal for the engine. And it's going to be a little bit warmer. But we can see the coil pack itself, where the windings are in that coil, is cooler compared to the other coil. Then when it's working, we can verify and we can see, well, there's an inline 6-cylinder right there, and we see 6 coil. So I always thought that was a really cool one to be able to see that. How about HVAC? So we might talk about blend door actuators, right? So we have dual zone climate control. Is it working the way it should? Is it stuck to one side instead of, or maybe like the latch, the linkage is broken? Could be a lot of different reasons. So in this case, we see that in this side, it was supposed to be the same temperature on both sides. It's not, kind of shut to one side. Or in this case, where it's fixed, it's putting out heat on both sides. Here's a cool video we captured a few weeks ago. So this is on a dual zone AC vehicle. So we can see we got it on full cold now. Then we turn the driver's side to full hot, passenger side to full cold. We can see it go over to this. Is a bit sped up video, but then we go the other way, turn the heat up on the right-hand side and the cold on the left-hand side. We can see we got about 46 degrees coming out the vent on the left and about 100 degrees coming out the vent on the right, 75, 80 degrees coming out the vent on the right. So you can kind of see how it gets hotter and gets cooler. And then we set both to cool back off again. We can see how it gets down to about 45 degrees coming out the vent. So that's also a good way to verify, is my AC system working? Is it putting out enough cold air to cool off the vents as well? So we can see how that works. How about cold weather items? We don't talk about this very often because not everywhere it gets cold, but I'll tell you where I live it does. How about heated seats? Heated seats uses an element of wire in there, and that's what heats up the fabric, which heats up your seat. So in this case, it is not working. We can see this side is, the passenger side is on, the driver's side is on, but this is not working. It's just kind of a all one temperature going across there. On this side, we can see how the wires are all individually heating up. It's not a huge difference, like 85 degrees versus 83 degrees over here, but we can see how the wires heat up. You could also be able to find a break in the wire. I know on Subarus, they had separate upper and lower panels, and it could break on the lower panel, but the upper panel would still work. So the butt would be cold, but the back wouldn't. So that'd be a good way to tell, okay, yeah, that's definitely broken right there. You'd be able to see it using that thermal imagery. Heated steering wheel, same deal. So it runs an element through the steering wheel. We can see where is it warm, where is it not. Right there, I'm guessing that's the seam on the steering wheel right there in between. And then over here, it's just not heating up at all. It's just the same temperature all the way around inside the vehicle. And in this case, we got 112 degrees on the hot spot on the wheel. It's going to keep your hands nice and toasty on those cold winter mornings. Rear defroster as well. So the rear defroster is not working, and maybe it's not a cold enough day where I can look and see, oh yeah, the ice is not melting in this spot. So I can just shoot the rear defroster grid, because we know they get scuffed up, they get scratched up. Sometimes they just won't make a connection at that point. So we can see how we got one bad grid line right there. How about the cooling system? So here we have a heater valve. So it's the diverter valve for the heater system, and we can see how it goes through this way. And we're supposed to be having heat go through here, or the cooling go through here, and it's not. So that would be an indicator that the valve is not working. If you try to open it, it's not flowing, then we see we don't have flow. Right-hand side is with the valve open and everything working as it should without it being clogged or anything. So that's a good presentation right there. Clogged radiator. So you can see I got my radiator hoses warm, lower radiator hoses warm, and it's only flowing through half the radiator right there. And it's not even that warm. It's 100 some degrees going through that radiator. And on this side, we have nice even flow going through. So instead of it being cooler on the left-hand side, it's nice and even across all the fins across both sides of that radiator. It's going to flow nicely through that on both sides. Let's see that, whether it's clogged or not. How about a thermostat? Is my thermostat opening? So I can shoot the lower thermostat. There's the housing. I can see how it's getting hot. And it's not open because my hose is cool. When it does open, I can see that my hose will warm up, and I can see that the thermostat opens up. To that end, we took another time-lapse video on this vehicle. So this target in the middle is going to be, the target is centered on the lower radiator hose on this vehicle. It's just started. So it's a little time-lapse video that we ran. So you can see there's the thermostat opening up, goes in the lower radiator hose, goes into the bottom of the radiator there. And then you can see how the whole area around the radiator and the top of the radiator gets warmed up there as well. So we're able to see how the car warms up over time. And I thought that was kind of neat how we can see how it goes through, warms up, and there's that thermostat opening again. So it's just going to loop, goes through, warms up the radiator, all that good stuff. So I'd be able to see, is my thermostat opening? Is my thermostat doing what it's supposed to be doing? And be able to see that there just like that. So I thought that was kind of a neat little video. Other items, how about here's another favorite of mine that you might not think of, window leaks. So I got a leaking window. It's going to leak on the way in. It also should leak on the way out, theoretically. So if I got like a whistling noise going down the road, or I got water intrusion, something of that nature, it will be detectable, or it should be hopefully detectable with the thermal camera. So what you do is you roll up the windows all the way. You turn on the heat full blast. You put the fan on full blast. And then you see, do I have any hot spots coming out the side of the window? So in this case, we have a leaking gasket at the top of the window. We can see it's quite a bit warmer up there than it is in other spots. And then in this case, this is after the repair. And we can see it's all very even. We don't have any hot spots of that air just rushing out through the gasket. And then how about ADAS, radar sensors? So in this case, we got radar sensors hidden behind the bumper. And in this case, this is it. If it makes heat, it's working. If it doesn't make heat, it's not working. So it needs by the radar sensor is going to be on, emitting radio waves. It's going to cause heat. So I should be able to see that, and I can actually see that through the bumper right there. Be able to see that that is generating heat behind the bumper relative to the rest of the scene. So I thought that was kind of cool. Ultrasonic sensors should do the same thing. When they're generating ultrasonic sound, they should be warmer and cooler when they're not. So we'll talk about using this thermal imaging and put it into work for you for your vehicle inspections, right? So we'd said before, we want to road test every vehicle. After the vehicle comes in, we'll put it up in the air and start a 4-corner inspection. We'll do tires, we'll do brakes, we'll do bearings, test the cat, test exhaust system temperatures. We're going to take a picture of the battery, and we're going to see, is there a high corrosion on the battery or something like that. Look at all the pulleys and belt tensioners. See if you can see a note where there might be a noisy pulley or something of that nature. And then there's a preventative maintenance checklist that we can provide you as well. If you want to talk to your local diagnostic rep, you can be able to find that. Or you can email me directly as well in order to get that. We have a checklist that you could use. You could also use it with a digital vehicle inspection. I'm going to show you that in a minute, what that would look like. So this is on a paper inspection. You just kind of go around. We got tires, brakes, wheel bearings, pinion bearings, exhaust bearings, and so on and so forth. So it's going to give you all of your examples, and you would want to check that off. And then we can use the thermal imagers as proof to say, hey, here's some issues we have. So Diagnostic Thermal Imager Elite also provides a couple other functions that others don't, and our other cameras don't as well. So it is specialized for automotive use, so -4 to 840 degrees Fahrenheit. Got a 4-hour battery, 4.3-inch screen, resolution 9 times a second refresh rate. Other addition is video recording, so it'll do 10-second videos. Wi-Fi uploads to the Snap-on cloud, which is cool. So I'm going to show you what that looks like. So you can actually use that to share with your customers, share with the repair orders, so you can see, so your customers can see what's going on with your with your vehicle, right? 6 levels of opacity as well, so it can go from all the way to full video to full thermal, and 6 steps in between. Picture in picture, which is going to be in the middle. We have a little picture of the thermal in the middle with the camera on the outside, and then a side-by-side view with the camera on one side and the thermal on the other side. So a couple of examples here, like opacity. Like I said, it does automatically upload to the Snap-on cloud. So we're going to look at a couple examples of that right now and see what that would look like. So it does upload automatically, like I said, to the Snap-on cloud, and that is free to sign up for with any of these tools. This also works for your any of your scan tools. As long as they have current software on there, you'll be able to upload pre and post scans, screenshots, camera pictures, and the like up here as well for free. So another thing that it does, though, is, like I said, the thermal camera does. I put in the wrong password. There we go. Got to put the right password, otherwise it doesn't work. So as I said, the thermal camera will upload as well. So here's just a couple examples I took with my vehicle. So the first one's going to be HVAC system. This one's side by side. So you can see I got the camera on the left and then the thermal on the right. We can see a good 39 degrees out of that vent. Boy, that AC is blowing nice and cold. Been feeling really good this summer, I'll tell you that for sure, having that example. Oops, I guess I can't get out of here without doing this. All right. So there's my AC. If we back up again, we have just a straight thermal image of that, and it also uploads in a couple different methods. So if I go to the left here, it'll upload the straight camera shot. There's the middle with the thermal with all the information. And then if I go to the right, it'll upload just the thermal without the information. Next one, this is, what is this one? This is radiator hose. Actually, yeah, I should just went over to the camera, right? So this is my lower radiator hose right there. This is before the vehicle warmed up. So you can see the vehicle is considerably warmer on the engine block, and that the thermostat had not opened at this point. So you can see it's 134 degrees on the hose. And if I go to the right, I lose my information there. This is on a cat. So on this one, the cat had a heat shield on it. So you can see where the heat shield kind of in the front where it's cooler, and then it's hotter up here. We go to the straight camera, we can see where that heat shield is right by the axle. And then if I go to the right, we lose the information. Here's one on AC. So this was kind of interesting, I thought. So this is on the low side. So that's the cold side. So you can see how much, it's 63 degrees. So it's not that cold, right? 63 degrees, but on a 90-degree day, it's pretty cool. Go to the left, we see my straight camera shot. Go to the right, whoops, if I click on it, it also opens full screen as well. And if I go to the right, you can see that there too. With that. And then this is another one. That one is a fuse box. So you can see I got the fuse box. I got a couple of relays. I got the fuse there, and we can see how the relays are a little warmer on the bottom. Let's see. This is one with opacity. So this is on a battery. This is on my battery, and you see how it's reduced opacity. So it's a little bit of a mixture. So on these pictures, what it'll do is it'll do a reduced opacity. It'll do a straight camera, and then it'll do a straight thermal on the other side. So I wanted to see if that little bit of corrosion that was there was causing an issue with my causing excessive heat, and it was not. So that was kind of nice. Well, we can see that there's a little bit of corrosion. It's not that, but not causing any issues anyways. And then the last one here, I did the high side as well. So you see the high side's warmer than the cold side for sure. 173 degrees on the edges. It was 127 degrees on the high side, 60-something degrees on the low side. Let's see that difference there with the AC. So with any of these pictures, though, what I can do is we have a link right here. So I click on that link. It's going to give me a few options. First option is send via SMS. So if I had this open on my phone, because it'll work on any device with an internet connection. So send via SMS would open my text messaging app, and then I could send it through there. Send via email, what that's going to do is if I have an email client installed, like in this case, I have Outlook installed, it'll open a new email. It'll add the link to the email. All I have to do is add who I'm going to send it to, and I can just hit send, and I'm good to go. Copy to clipboard is going to copy that link to a clipboard, and then I can paste it wherever I need it to go. If I want to put it in my Gmail, I want to put it in a repair order for ShopKey Manager, I could do that as well. So I just copied that to the clipboard. So I can go over here to my ShopKey Manager, and that's on a different computer. So I'm not 100% sure if this is going to work across, but I can go in here and I can add a note. Right in here, we can add notes. So let's see, options. Oops, that's not how I do it. Go in here. And you can add notes in here. There we go, notes. Put it in the wrong spot. So I can add notes. Let's see if paste works. Yeah, paste works. So I can paste that link into my notes, and then I hit done, and then that will save it in as a link. So I could recall this later. I could paste that into my browser, and then I could have access to this later, a week, a month, a year from now. I could have access to that and still have that. Another thing that you can do that I mentioned earlier is a multi-point inspection. So a lot of people do digital vehicle inspections. Nowadays, we have a system that we use as well that works with Manager. So you can see on this vehicle, I also have a multi-point inspection available, and there's one right there. So if I open that up and choose my vehicle, and then we can see we can go what we checked off. And then in this case, I have a thermal imager that I took a picture with my tablet that I was using to do the digital vehicle inspection. So you're going to do the digital vehicle inspection. It's got a camera on the tablet or phone anyways. So you can just take a picture of the screen if you wanted to do it that way. That way you have the visual and you don't have to worry about having the link. So it's just another way of doing it. A couple folks are interested in how you would do that. So That's just another option of what you could do with that with a digital vehicle inspection as well. So just a bunch of different options for sharing, and hopefully you found a bunch of different options for what you can do with thermal imaging and using the free Snap-on Cloud and using being able to share this information with your customers at a future date. So with that, that is my time for today. We'll get to questions here in a minute. Let's talk about next week next week though, before I do. So next week, we're continuing on with our component testing series we did. We did a bunch of them last summer, and it was on a bunch of different components on a vehicle. So we go through component operation, how to test it, how it works, a couple pitfalls you might run into, and how you're supposed to, how you should look at it. So this week's going to be, or next week's going to be speed sensors. So same time, same place, 6 and 9 Eastern. We're going to talk about transmission speed sensors, wheel speed sensors, and the like, how they work, how they should look on a scope when you're testing them, and so on. So 6 and 9 Eastern, if you want to join me on Zoom, snapon.com/OT to sign up for there. 6 Eastern goes to YouTube. So if you go to youtube.com/snapon-diagnostics, check us out there. If you are watching on YouTube, please make sure you like and subscribe. That helps with that funny algorithm we got to worry about. So if you like and subscribe, and if you ring the notification bell, you'll know anytime we go live or post new content to the channel. So definitely check that out. If you want to check out any of our previous classes we've done as well, those are all archived on YouTube too. So if you go to youtube.com/snapon-diagnostics, there is a playlist for live training. So you can see anywhere from ADOS, no code diagnostic strategy. There's that component testing series we did, and so on. So a lot of good information there if you want to check that out from previous classes. All right, looking at Zoom, looks like we don't have any questions on Zoom, and that's fine. Let's look at YouTube. Nick's checking in from over in great old jolly old England. He's over in the UK. I know it's 11 o'clock at night, so thanks for always joining us from England. Let's see. Abel, hi, welcome. Thanks for checking in. You're always here every week. I always appreciate you saying hi. DJ says, hi, can you share your email so I can get the checklist? So yeah, my email is jason.gabrinas@snapon.com. Actually, I'll put it in the chat for you. Yeah, so I'll put it in the chat for you right there. You can use that, and you can just email me directly. Just remind me, just say, hey, I need the thermal checklist, and I'll email it to you. If you're joining me on Zoom, you can just reply to your confirmation email. That'll go right to my inbox as well. Let's see. Keith says, I have the other thermal tool. Is there any way I can save those pictures for the cloud? Unfortunately, those other tools do not have the Wi-Fi antenna, so it doesn't even have Wi-Fi capability, so it wouldn't be able to upload there. So the only one that has is the Elite, and that's just that it adds that extra function to go up there, Keith. So Raymond says, awesome, I'm investing in one next week. Excellent, must-have tool. Excellent. Glad to hear that you like it, and hopefully you'll be able to check some of these cool things out and be able to see heat and see what's going on with the vehicle. Abel says, yeah, Chevy Cruze, 2012 Chevy Cruze, the PO420. You can see that. You can see whether or not the cat is lighting off and the cat is working using thermal imager as well. And then DJ says, thanks for the email. All hail thermal energy. Absolutely. Always good to have another little thing in your pocket. Now, I will also give you another little bit of advice. If you have a thermal imager, more than likely, and this is just how we've seen it out there, is more than likely it's probably in the bottom drawer of your tool. So if you want to use the thermal imager more, take it out of the bottom drawer, put it on the top of your toolbox, and just have it staring you in the face all day. And then you might think, oh, well, hey, there's that. I can just take a look at this and see what thermal images I can get. So that's the best advice I can give you. If you want to use it more, definitely the best way to go about it. All right. So with that, looks like we've cleared the board on both screens. Let me just double check my Zoom here. Yeah, looks good. So with that, I also want to make sure I mention my buddy Al. So my buddy Al also does free diagnostic training 3 nights a week. He does Mondays on Apollo, Wednesdays on Zeus, and Thursday is on Triton. So if you want to learn anything more about any of those tools, it is a very thorough class. The first hour on any night, it's going to be on whatever respective tool he's using that night. But the first hour is going to be, let's make sure your Wi-Fi is set up. So that way you can utilize some of the functions on the tool, or all the functions of the tool anyway. And then let's set up your free Snap-on Cloud account, like I just talked about here, that Snap-on Cloud account. Let's set that up to make sure that you can get the most use out of that. And then he's going to walk through code to completion a real world scenario using Fast Track Intelligent Diagnostics. How does it help me as a technician diagnose a car easier, faster, better, all that. So that's about an hour. And then on Wednesday and Thursday, since the Zeus and the Triton also have scope and meter functions, he takes about a 5-minute break and then goes for another hour on scope and meter functions. So it is a very thorough class. He goes through a lot of real world examples, things that you'll probably be able to use in the shop the next day if you haven't already. So definitely worth your time, same place, 5 and 8 Central, 6 and 9 Eastern. You go to snapon.com/OT to register to get your seat on Zoom. I'm sure he would be more than happy to have you. They're definitely designed more to have your tool in front of you and follow along as he's going on the screen as well. So definitely worth time to check that out. With that, on YouTube, Michael says, hopefully this gets him to start using his thermal imager more. I hope so too, because it's a great tool. It's a wonderful investment. So why would you not want to get the most out of it, right? So hopefully that'll help out with that. Hopefully you picked up a few tips and tricks today with the thermal imaging, and hopefully you'll get some use out of it. So thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your week. Enjoy your weekend. Hopefully we'll catch you next week for speed sensors. With that, enjoy the rest of your night. Take care.